Welcome everyone to System Malfunction. My name is Hessie Jones, and this is the second in my AI Critic series where we interview researchers, practitioners, voices who have worked in the AI sector for some time and whose experience with artificial intelligence means that they have a platform to espouse their views. And I'm giving them that platform in this episode. What happens when everyone in the room believes that AGI is here, that LLMs are actually AGI? That's what my next guest, Mounir Shita, experienced when he put a conference together in Portland. It was a gathering of researchers, tech executives, developers to talk about the future of the economy and society when AGI arrives. This discussion doesn't just highlight that incident, but reveals how common this anthropomorphization of LLMs is leading people who use the technology on a day-to-day basis to believe that these systems are conscious, they're real, just like you and me. More importantly, it highlights the need to educate everyone who doesn't know what's going on underneath the hood so they are not fooled by these fancy systems that don't think and don't understand. Enjoy this conversation. One of the reasons I reached out to you was because I remember when you talked to me about the event that happened in December. And that's something that I've been thinking about for a while because it seems there's an overwhelming, this is just anecdotal, but from what I see on LinkedIn, what I even see on Substack, and even in the real world, people are jumping onto this bandwagon and thinking that we're closer to AGI than you think. And they're the ones that aren't necessarily the people that are working in this space every day. Some of them are developers and they really do see an improvement in how Claude is improving. Same thing with ChatGPT. But the reality is that even though sometimes they're fed the information about why there isn't any intention from a system perspective or even an understanding of what's being said, they don't care. So that's why I want to have this conversation. And I'm wondering if you could start with the event that happened in December and what happened. Maybe we could start there.
The event in December was supposed to be about what happens to economics, law, and governance once we reach AGI. And it wasn't really about what is AGI. Beyond that, guessing the next token, or in plain English, guessing the next word, is definitely not AGI. And I thought leaving it at that. I always said, if you believe guessing the next word in a sentence gets you to AGI, then you guess all the right numbers in the lottery. Does that make you a mathematical genius? But yeah, I was taken off guard because no one wanted to talk about AGI outside of the realm of large language models. Even when we talked about economics and law and governance, it was within large language models. And no matter how much I try to, well, first of all, I try to avoid the conversation because that's not what the event was supposed to be about. But I felt like I had to step in a little bit by saying, engineering has always been about implementing science. So in the realm of AGI, the question is, what is intelligence? Are we really implementing it? Because we don't really know what it is. At least in mainstream, we don't know what it is. So how can we say that large language model is intelligence if it's just using statistics to guess the relationship between words? Not only did people reject that, I was actually asked to leave the stage and let the audience and the other people who were on stage just kind of take over because, like one guy said, and by the way, this is a former VP of a major tech company, asked me to step away because I clearly don't know what AGI is. And it was mind-blowing. I was not expecting it. I was definitely not ready to handle it. And I couldn't tell if this is Portland mentality or if this is more mainstream mentality. I don't know.
How did the audience react? Did it seem like there was a support for what he was saying and not what you were saying?
Yes. So it wasn't a very big crowd, but it was close to 50, I believe. There were 2 people in the audience that did not believe LLM is AGI in any way, shape, or form. Those had the belief before, and I kind of knew them from before anyways. There was an absolute belief that large language models is AGI. And the idea of talking about AGI outside of large language models, in that room, it felt like cussing in church.
Wow. So when you say cussing at church, give me some of the reactions that people were giving at that moment.
When it comes to the reaction, it wasn't really, besides that tech executive, it wasn't really direct reaction during the event. It was more about every time I tried to talk about AGI as a potential causal algorithm that could control how the future evolved as we tried to achieve goals, conversation always went back to Claude, ChatGPT, and framing every discussion we had about AGI's impact on the future of society as OpenAI, as Anthropic. What will they do with the current tools they have? The direct reactions came afterwards, when there was after the event, when there was one-on-one conversations. There was one guy who wondered if there was something wrong with me for not seeing the responses ChatGPT gives you. How can you tell me that that's not on the path to consciousness? I made a mistake on the first guy to debate him, and then I realized there's no point of a debate, because no amount of evidence will change their minds. I tell you, one other guy said that when I tried to explain the difference between engineering and science is the acquisition of knowledge from the natural world, and then we use that knowledge to create stuff, and that's engineering. I don't remember exactly which insulting word he called me, but he called me something, and he said, computers are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, so clearly that's science. So he goes, engineering and science are the exact same thing. And I was just...
The one other person who was on your side, I'm not sure if you actually spoke to him after the event. The only few people in the room that have an adverse opinion. So how do you reconcile that with the prevailing view that's obviously wrong? And maybe wrong isn't the word. Maybe it's just what's been sold and what they perceive to be reality.
He did come up to me afterwards, and I'm trying to be as verbatim as possible, but I do not remember exactly how he said it, but he did advise me not to debate these people. He called them delusional people with no capacity of critical thinking. Someone comes up to you and says, we have AGI, the first thing you should do is to ask critical questions. Not dismiss it, not accept it, but ask critical questions. That doesn't seem to have happened with ChatGPT. It's that illusion on the screen that it's a human there.
Yeah.
Is enough for people to just accept it.
What was the makeup of the people that came? I'm assuming there were a cross section of engineers as well as business people, tech executives. What were your audience? What did they look like?
It was AI people, AI tinkerers, AI engineers, 2 or 3 maybe tech executives. I don't believe there was any outside of the AI, except for the panelists. So these are people that should know how things work underneath the hood.
So what do you think it is? Because I know there is a marketing disparity. We know that. We know that there are people like Jensen Huang, even Altman, and then they have those accelerationists. Andreessen Horowitz believes in the eventuality of it, and even Elon Musk. But their views seem to have cut through.
Let's start with the Elon Musk thing, because the Elon Musk thing, I think, is very clear. He claims that somehow AI is going to wake up and realize they don't need a human race and kill us all. The best way to get people to support you is to scare them, threaten their lives, saying someone's going to come and kill you. I mean, you've seen that through politicians across decades and centuries. The whole AI safety debate, when it comes to AGI, not current AI, but who was that said that it's like worrying about overpopulation on Mars when we haven't even gotten there? I think that's a perfect analogy where I think Elon Musk created this fear, causing a lot of people to start thinking about safety for AGI when they have absolutely no clue what it is. Then you have this Sam Altman, one of the funding rounds. There were some rumors that the funding round might not get through, so he started talking AGI. He released an essay about how great AGI is going to make the world, make life on planet Earth. And then he got a bunch of money. Hope is another really strong emotional driver. I do question if Sam Altman actually believes what he's preaching, or if he's doing it for money, to constantly bring money in. And that would be fraud. The thing is, it takes the investors to pursue criminal charges, not, the state can't do it. So if investors one day, OpenAI's investor one day, realize that they might have been sold a lie, they are the only one who can take that step. I'm actually worried that they might actually do take that step, because one thing is to have a belief, and that's great. We all should believe in something. But when your belief is demonstrably false, you don't have the right to sell that belief for money anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it, you can talk about it, but the moment you start selling it for money, you cross the line. And that's what I'm worried about. In the LLM world, that's what's going on. There's exception. I've never heard Demis Hassabis selling LLM as AGI. I've never heard Dario Amodei, although he's at the edge, but I've never heard him directly sell AGI. I don't know if they're doing it because they're needing money and they need to keep that view alive.
Going.
Yeah. But there is one thing that distinguishes Dario Amodei and Sam Altman and all the LLM crowd from the non-LLM crowd in the context of AGI. If you look at people like Demis Hassabis, Jan LeCun, including myself on this one, we were in this AGI world, actually it was called AI back then, long before the current AI spring. And one of the cool things, or the great things about an AI winter, is you get to reflect what worked, what didn't work. All of the stuff that's going on today, all of the famous celebrities, Sam Altman, Dario Amodei, all of those guys were essentially born inside of an AI spring. They've seen something that acts really cool on the screen, and they just extrapolate from there and think that's going to get to AGI.
Dario worked under Jeff Hinton,
yes.
I believe, right? And so Jeff Hinton and his deep learning models were the basis of generative AI, is that right?
Yeah, I like to say that mainstream AI is kind of like a battery. There's been evolutions, but no breakthroughs over the last several decades. Generative AI is an evolution of neural networks, even before deep, but there's no real breakthrough. And to talk about Jeffrey Hinton, I had a very brief conversation with him, and the one thing he does believe, although he believes he can do it within the neural network, which I don't know if anyone would ever agree with him on that, but he does believe that AGI requires a single algorithm. Now, that's why I don't believe we can do it in a deep neural network.
Mm.
But this idea of single algorithm, the idea of goal-oriented behavior, the stuff that we were talking about before large language models, totally disappeared from the discourse. Now it's all about, I'm guessing, the next word in a sentence. There's no goal orientation. There's no talk about, do we reduce this to a single algorithm or not? That illusion that's on the screen is enough to...
Did you read Eric's paper, by the way?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
It seemed a familiar experience that he was going through, that you went through as well, right? I think most of us feel the same way. Every time you talk harms, every time you talk bias, every time you talk job loss, it's almost like people don't want to hear it. Or it helps to justify their adoption if they dismiss it?
I would probably go a little bit further and say AI is going to take our jobs, or AGI is going to take all of our jobs. I totally agree with it. It will take all of our jobs. And so we get scared. But we don't ask why it will take up all of our jobs. It's those deeper questions that does not get asked. If you don't ask them, you'll never get an answer. So AGI will take all of our jobs, which means I will not have an income. How do I pay for my bills? How do I do this? How do I do that? What AI is missing is deeper questions. Why something will happen.
Based on that, if somebody knows that inevitably they will have to rethink what life looks like for an individual or what purpose looks like for an individual, why then do people think that this is an eventuality? Why do they think that we can't fight an existing system as it's evolving? Why would they adopt something that they knew was going to be bad for them at the end of the day? That to me it just baffles me that people would accept something that's not even here yet.
If you believe the narrative of the AI mainstream AI world, we're going to, for example, have universal basic income. So life sounds great. You get to sit on the couch all day, watch TV, and get a check in the mail. Why would you fight that? Now, you could obviously ask, well, what's the purpose? But people don't ask that.
There's no economic grounds for that. Like, is all the money going to be created by machines so that we can sit on our butts and not doing anything? There is no plan or strategy to figure out, okay, so what? We have no job. Somehow the economy cannot keep churning if there's no demand and then there's no income for individuals to be able to buy what's produced.
Yeah, so first of all, my research is in not just in AGI, the science of intelligence, but also in economics and governance. And that narrative that's being told by the AI world about universal basic income and we don't have to do anything because the machine is going to be conscious, they're going to know what we want, they're going to produce. There's a book called The Final Invention. Forgot who wrote it, but I do remember having an email conversation with him, and he called me a crazy guy for thinking machines will not have consciousness. I'm sorry, it's called Our Final Invention by James Barat. Yes.
You spoke to him, you said.
Just an email conversation. It did not end very well because I was challenging him. At the end of the day, the reason why, first of all, free will and consciousness, I will argue to the end of the day, is impossible on the computer system because computers are designed to execute the next instruction in memory. Free will would essentially mean deciding not to execute the next instruction and execute something else, which is theoretically impossible in the computer system. No amount of complex code will ever allow you to break the fundamental laws of a system. As an example, there's nothing we humans can invent that would allow us to break the laws of nature. Same with software. There is no complexity that would allow you to break the fundamental rules of the system it's running on. Free will cannot exist. Consciousness, I don't even know what it is. I don't think anyone knows what it is. I know there's people researching it, so I will defer to them what it is before we can say if we can write software to do it or not. You'll never have a machine that can essentially know what we want. They can predict what we need because they can see our goals and figure out, okay, well, we need to have this invention. But just to kind of take over and guide us and treat us as their kids, that's just never going to happen.
What about, and I'm just taking the example now for those who have used OpenClaw, where you give them a directive, but you don't fill in the gaps. You just say, go do this, and you don't give the detailed instructions that you probably would give to Claude Code. And so they have to figure it out. And so at the point where they're figuring it out, it knows that I have to reach this goal. It will do whatever it can, take the asset at its disposal to create that goal. If you tell it to stop, saw this on X, I'm not sure if it's true, and it will not stop. In fact, there was instances where it defied its own human, and then they finally had to unplug the machine. I don't know if that's true. My question is, from that perspective, it just seems like it's establishing some kind of sovereignty.
So I suspect that story is not quite true. If it is, it's
Okay.
bad programming. Here's the thing. If you take a computer system with the most complex AI code you could ever create, and you're able to freeze time. I know it's not possible, but just you freeze time so that you can look at the inputs. If you look at the inputs into the system, you look at all the state the system is in, so all the variables in memory, and you look at the algorithm, you can, with 100% predictability, know what the output's going to be, because computers are deterministic. This idea that a piece of software can just decide on its own to do stuff that it wasn't programmed to do, that's a theoretically impossibility. If it does it, it means bad programming. It's explainable, and you just need to find the bug. It's the same story we heard back in the day when Facebook had those two AI agents communicate, but the media was saying Facebook unplugged the system because they learned to talk in a language so that we humans can understand them, or something like that. Reality was they were programmed for efficiency, for communication efficiency, and they didn't end up doing what they expected to do, so they shut it off because the experiment failed. There was no evil plan of AIs communicating in a secret language. But you know what? A failed experiment doesn't generate as many news clicks.
Yeah. They said the same thing about like the number of agents that they were unleashing into that Moltbook social network. And they're saying less than 2% of the actual agents were active. And there are maybe 150 humans that were distributed among the, I don't know, thousands and thousands of bots that were there. So it gives you an idea already how many are actually controlling the content. And so when they have starter threads that talk about developing their own language or how to block humans from seeing them, from what I've seen anecdotally, they've said that all those were seeded by the humans and that there's no way that these agents would have any feeling that they're being watched, or they're afraid of not being able to exist at one point. It's just weird. But people are buying it. That's the problem.
But you could also see that, and I am guilty of this too, because I use Claude a lot. I will say thank you. I would be, I don't know why I called him a him, it's an it. Will it have its feelings hurt? I think it's just a human thing. But I think what you're getting to is the paperclip experiment. When you talk about, oh, it was, open clause going after a goal, using every piece of resource it can to achieve that goal, that is the paperclip thought experiment, that a super intelligent tasked with making paperclips will turn every atom in the universe into paperclips. That's not super intelligence. If you don't understand that the purpose of your paperclips is to sell them to people, you're missing something. Because if you turn people into paperclips, you're destroying your market. There's no one who needs your paperclips. Intent is what's missing. There's no intent in these things. So if you ask me, what is the one key requirement to AGI? My answer would be comprehension, to understand. And let me give an example. I'm building this website right now, the AGI tour we're doing. And I'm using Claude Code. And young people always come up with these fanciest names. Vibe coding, I think they're calling it. Right?
Vibe coding, yes.
Vibe coding. So the first version of this was like very detailed and very technical and very scientific. And I actually asked Claude, what do you think of this website? I had my opinion. It was not good. Claude was like, oh, it explains everything and explains this and explains your review on this. And I go, what's the purpose of a website? And Claude was something like to inform your audience. And like, what audience? If you bog them down in boring scientific paragraphs, the point of a website is to intrigue people to come. If you don't understand that, you can be the best software developer in the world and your product will still be crap. So comprehension is the one key ingredient in AGI. Without it, you will not have AGI. Claude, ChatGPT, OpenClaw, all of the stuff that exists today, none of them have comprehension.
You would think that he would answer that question right. Everyone knows, and even every single blog that they probably scraped out there, marketing blog says, the storefront of your business is your website. It's your best marketing tool.
I would go back to that human expression. There are book smart people and there's street smart people. Claude is book smart. Claude probably wouldn't be able to survive on the streets if it was a robot.
But you don't think that it would have been in those blogs and books that they had? When you asked Claude that question, they weren't able to answer it to your satisfaction.
So the original thing is, hey, there's an event about want to present some provocative statements about what AGI should be, and we want audience to challenge us. That was the initial prompt. Now, if I had given that to a bunch of web designers, which are marketers by trade, they would have understood, okay, so you need to convince people to come to your event, and this is what the event is about. To Claude, it was like, oh, okay, well, let's make it technical or scientific. The event that we're building is not something you read about in a blog. Sure, you can read about something similar here and there, but remember, if someone has only talked about it once or twice or 10 times, it's not going to score very high in their next token prediction algorithm.
So from your perspective, like when you use Claude Code, it's very discrete tasks. Very few times do you actually ask for its opinion. It's more for building and saving you time.
Yes, I look at it as a tool. I love Claude, I love Gemini and Claude Code, but they're tools. There's a difference between disagreeing that Claude is becoming AGI versus Claude is a tool. It helps, it saves me time. It speeds up what I need to get done. I've seen those ads where you're like, oh, you can just tell Claude with the paragraph what app you want and it will magically build it for you. Like, it's going to be a really bad app because it doesn't understand what you really need. The way I use it is one function at a time. I look at myself as the director. I direct it to do this, you need to do this, this, and this, and this. But Claude, as my employee here, is actually a shitty employee because it doesn't, if I had a human employee, they will understand the purpose of the project. Claude doesn't, so I have to macro manage Claude. As a tool, it saves me time.
Are you using the most advanced model on Claude? Is it Opus?
Yes.
Opus is the latest one, but I'm not. Is that the one you're using right now?
Yeah, it says there Opus 4.6 extended.
Okay, so you're using this.
Would you trust the self-driving feature on a Tesla enough to go to sleep?
No.
Why should we trust OpenClaw or Claude to do the same thing? They don't understand. Like, I will trust my 16-year-old who just got her license more than a self-driving car.
I know.
Because when she gets into a situation that she's never seen before, she at least falls back to her human intelligence and can figure stuff out.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say, I went into my friend's car a few years back, and he had a Tesla. And so he was texting while he was driving. And then, he said, Hesse, trust me, this is fine. I was freaking out. And he said, it'll figure it out. He goes, don't worry. It'll brake if it needs to brake and all that stuff. I do that now with my car, and it's a Mazda, and it has censored censored braking, censored steering, all that. The fact that he had both hands off the wheel, he was looking down, he might as well have been sleeping from my perspective.
Have you ever taken a Waymo?
No, no. That's only in the West Coast, though.
Yeah, you're right. So I've taken a Waymo a million times, and I'm not scared when I'm inside a Waymo because they only drive like in San Francisco, they only drive in a very small region that they've been trained and trained and trained on. I'm not worried about as long as the world operates within the framework of what has been taught, where they've been pre-trained. I'm not worried about that. The problem is life is not like that. Stuff happens that's completely outside of what you've experienced before. And we humans know how to navigate those. A pre-trained model, and this is not a problem I have with AGI, there is no life form on Earth that is born with a pre-trained model of the environment.
Yeah, that makes sense. So my question to you, okay, so you're doing this event again.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you're probably going to curate the audience better. And then second, like, what are you going to do differently? And do you think there needs to precede some kind of knowledge transfer before people get into the discussion that you want to get them into?
So revamped it completely. The point of this is to bring, again, it's a preview of our research, but I'm also bringing in other researchers to present alternate views on what we have. So I don't want it to be an echo chamber of like yes men. So, and the goal is to use the human love for drama. Let the audience challenge us. Let it be a challenge. Here's our view, here's a guest speaker's view, and have the audience try and knock us down. See if we can hold up. We're going to play on this idea that you don't like what you hear, challenge us. We will have a code of conduct. So there, for example, you can't say, oh, you're stupid. You can say your assumptions are stupid and explain why, but you can't say you are stupid. You can't do any personal attack the assumptions. I don't know if that will work, but I think it will work.